Let's talk about the slightly less good news, and that is what is happening in the domestic scenario here in the UK while all that was going on in Switzerland. Massive protests going on up and down the country, Steve, from ordinary people, you know, concerned about their neighbourhoods, concerned about their communities. Epping is kind of the epicentre for it, I suppose, because that's where it seemed to start. But it's now happening in Aldershot, it's now happening in Bournemouth, in Leeds, in Altrincham, in Manchester. It's happening in Diss, in Norfolk. You know, up and down the country, people and communities have just had enough. You know, they've had these migrant hotels in their communities for years, and they don't want them anymore.
Well, they're right to have had enough, aren't they? I mean, the truth is that the legal framework which we've inherited since the Second World War for dealing with refugees and asylum seekers is not fit for the modern age. And of course, the public are going to be up in arms when there's allegations of a man having sexually assaulted a 14-year-old driving. That is going to alarm the public, and rightly so. It is scandalous that it happened. So, of course, people are going to have their concerns. The legal framework under which this government and our government had to operate is not fit for this century. And, you know, people are coming in far too large numbers. I think I saw your migrant tracker is now 47,000 since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. They foolishly scrapped our Rwanda plan. What we have to do is make the UK a much less attractive destination for migrants to come to illegally. That is going to require further changes to the law of the kind that the Labour Party will not like voting for. I mean, when you look at these protesters and the counter-protesters are broadly representative of the Labour cast of mind that the country should be open to all with generous benefits. That's why illegal migrants are coming. So I'm afraid I'm not very optimistic about the same Labour MPs who refused to vote for PIP changes, disability benefit changes. I'm not optimistic about those MPs then voting for the things which are now seen to be necessary in order to satisfy the public over migration. It's a powder keg, I'm afraid.
It really is. And, you know, seemingly the government doesn't want to say anything about it, because I watched sort of incredulously yesterday as various government ministers were sort of put out there to talk about one thing and another, and not one of them wanted to talk about this. And Starmer hasn't wanted to address it either since last week. And in fact, I don't think he's ever actually tweeted about it. He seems more convinced that he should care about the people of Gaza more than he cares about the people of Britain.
Well, they're trapped with two problems there which compete. On the one hand, of course, all representatives should represent the public's interests, however they voted, actually, insofar as they can. But we also don't want to be, if you're a minister, you don't want to be talking up the prospects of civil unrest. So, you know, that is, to be fair to them, difficult. But also, on the other hand, they've got this problem that Labour voters are where the government is. You know, they want to be very open and relaxed about asylum and refugees, and they also want to be very exercised about Gaza. Now, if I may, to be fair, if I still represented Wickham, well, 1 in 5 of the electorate in Wickham are British Muslims, and they will be extremely exercised about Gaza. And there is a conversation to be had. But, you know, your listener who sent in his voice note, he's right. For the vast majority of the public in the UK, Gaza is not a first-order priority. This is really serious, I'm afraid, because for many people in our country, and that they're not motivated by hate. They just, for them, if they're Muslims and they see Muslims elsewhere being treated in this way, it will become a first-order issue for them. And so I've got some sympathy. It's right to address the issue of Gaza. I'd love to know what the real truth is of what's going on there. But Keir Starmer's priorities are clearly at odds with the British public. And unfortunately, we've got to put up with them for another 4 years.
Yeah, well, you say that, but it looks more and more to me like he's not going to last that length of time. And I'm not even sure that the actual government will, because of the way the economy is being stewarded, the number of things that are going wrong, the fact that this is, by any measure, the most incompetent government I think we've ever had.
Well, I think it probably is, yes. But I'm afraid I've got some experience of prime ministers being removed and leaving office otherwise. And governments don't typically fall. The truth is that members of parliament don't much like general elections. And these members of parliament in particular will not like the prospect of a general election. And so they won't vote to go to one. They're in a confidence vote. And that's how a government could fall, is if it loses a vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
In a confidence vote, Labour MPs would vote for confidence in the government, as would, I'm quite sure, those MPs who've had the whip taken off them. They will also vote to keep Labour in power. So it's very difficult to see how this Labour government falls before its time is up. I'm quite sure the public could be absolutely outraged with it and sick of it, but actually to remove those members of parliament from the House of Commons and therefore take the government down, that is very difficult to see how that happens in less than the remaining 4 years.
Yeah. Well, listen, all I can tell you is that I've been saying it for a while, and an awful lot of commentators now are sort of joining me in saying that, I don't see Starmer lasting because of his unpopularity in his own party. And that's part of the problem. He's now got the sort of the phalanx on the left from Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. He's got the backbenchers who are pushing him ever into, positions that he said he wouldn't want to go into. They are the most unpopular, and he is the most unpopular Prime Minister that there's ever been, I think.
Well, yeah, I think that's true. So I think his chances of making it to the next general election are probably relatively slim. But how that works out is up to Labour MPs, I think, first and foremost. But yeah, he's not a great Prime Minister at all by any means. I mean, it'd be ludicrous to suggest he was. I mean, he saved the Labour Party from Jeremy Corbyn. I think we quickly move on. I was intimately involved in the time with advising the independent group very secretly because who wanted to destroy the Labour Party and replace it. And the Labour Party had split into two camps, those who wanted to stay within it and rescue it and those who wanted to destroy it from outside. And Keir Starmer led the camp that wanted to destroy the Labour Party. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Keir Starmer led the faction that wanted to rescue the Labour Party from within. And he succeeded in doing that. And in a way, that's a service to the nation because it meant we got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. But
he's
it's
back.
Not, well, yeah, he's not likely to, with a party that can't decide what its name is. I mean, that level of incompetence is, I'm afraid, typical. But they're not likely to be troubling His Majesty with a call to form the government. But thank God. But Starmer may not make it. He did save the Labour Party, but he's proving to be an incompetent in government. Yes, maybe his Labour MPs will remove him.
Yeah, I think that may well be on the cards. And at that point, the whole kind of box of cards, the whole house of cards, maybe comes tumbling down. There's an awful lot of things going wrong in this country, but one of them is that the government's got this view now that if there are going to be this many migrants in the country, you're going to have to be careful what you say about it, because they've decided to have an elite police group now to monitor what people have to say on social media.
Yeah, it's sinister, isn't it? It really is sinister, and it's in the context of the disproportionate sentencing of Lucy Connolly. What she said was wrong, and I think he's right that she was sentenced, but the sentence is wholly disproportionate. And it's in that context that people will see this and think that the state and the police are putting more effort into policing speech than they are policing migrant hotels and ordinary crime. It's really serious. The police are founded on some principles, the Pelian principles, which include maintaining public consent and consent for what the police do and what they prioritise. When we introduced police and crime commissioners, that was partly supposed to make sure that police priorities reflected local concerns. It's obviously plainly not working in parts of the country. I hope people will vote in police and crime commissioner elections and try and make sure that the police priorities are set by people the public have confidence in. But that's a bit of a long-term plan. In the short run, what we need is police officers, senior police officers who decide on policing priorities and what actually happens operationally, to make sure that they have regard to the need constantly to maintain public consent. We're not in a healthy place on policing, I'm afraid, and it's the outworking of years of cultural corruption of this country, prioritising the wrong things, quite against the common sense best ideas of the British public.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Good to talk to you. Steve Baker, thanks very much indeed, former Conservative government minister. Let's